Hey, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha, helping you guys to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. We start our class with meditation, but then afterwards we study his original teachings so that way you guys can understand what did the Buddha teach and what he didn't teach. The individual who we refer to as the Buddha over 2,500 years ago, he figured out how to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings, such as anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You can actually eliminate all of this. It's not the outside world that's causing these feelings. It's what's going on in your inside of your mind. And this is why you can train your mind to eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings. So meditation is part of that training, but there's other things that you need besides meditation. So that's why after our meditation, I'm going to share some teachings with you guys to help you understand what the Buddha taught as part of this path. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting in order to be able to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You're welcome to chant along if you like. I have laminated sheets over there on the cabinet that you're welcome to help yourself to, and you can actually chant along because it actually helps you to ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So he used it as a learning tool or as a learning device, where today we use it more to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. There's none of those kinds of things as part of the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer as part of what people are presenting as Buddhism, the Buddha never taught these things. This isn't part of his teachings. There are no beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha. You're learning, examining, and investigating teachings. You're reflecting on them to verify if they're true or they're false, and you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life to be able to train your mind. So you're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. The Buddha also didn't teach through rules and commandments and things like this. He wasn't trying to guilt, shame, or fear you into doing anything at all. He had already figured out how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And then out of the kindness of his heart, he helped other people to figure out how to do the same thing and accomplish that same goal. So we use the chanting nowadays to help you get more benefit out of the meditation if you choose to chant on your way into meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing some guidance, where I'm going to be essentially teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating. Everybody here at the temple and anybody joining online will just all be meditating together. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. That if you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated, where the world around you is constantly changing, but the mind in the unenlightened state will crave permanence. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. You're going to hear occasional sounds. So if you understand that the world is impermanent, when you hear that sound during meditation, you know that it's going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away, and you can be at ease and you can be at peace because you understand the world is working exactly the way it's intended to work, where things around you are constantly changing. After that period of time of quietness, we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand some of the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. You would learn these different positions as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like having a tool belt, and you would learn and use these different tools at different times as part of your journey, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. Your body is impermanent, and different people are going to find different things to be comfortable. So the Buddha taught 4 positions because he understood that your body can't be in the same position permanently. You're going to need these different positions at different times. So you can learn those in the various courses and retreats that we share. But here today, today, since a lot of times people are starting out learning, I'll share with you a little bit of information on the seated position, because this is a common position, a primary way that people will tend to meditate. So I'll give you guys some suggestions or recommendations, but just understand what I'm sharing with you are just that, suggestions and recommendations. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we live in an impermanent world. So you can use anything that I share, but also if you come up with something on your own, feel free to use that too. So you could be sitting on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And then the same thing's true for anybody sitting in a chair or in a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, you would like this to be erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because what meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid like this, your mind would be overactive or uptight. So you'd like your body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So I'm going to do the chanting to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Puri sa Dhamma sati sata tawa manusrang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was sharing, today is our Pali Canon and English study group. What the Pali Canon is this is 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. This is the original source teachings of the Buddha, where after his life, they documented his teachings, and this is the largest, most complete collection that we have of the teachings of the Buddha. And all of the programs that I share here, whether it's a class, course, or retreat, I usually teach in a traditional method where I'm kind of teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes, then I'm opening up for questions, teaching another 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions. And this is the way that most people kind of start, and they build a foundation. Well, once students have built a foundation in the path to enlightenment, they will oftentimes come into this class, which is called our Pali Canon and English study group, where we study directly the words of the Buddha, which is a bit different than the other programs that we share. So in this particular program, what I do is I invite students here at the temple, and those of you guys that are online in Zoom, to be able to read a chapter. This is the original words of the Buddha. You can see this chapter is looks like about a page and a little bit more than a page and a half. And after someone reads this chapter, I'm going to share some teachings on this just to help you understand how to integrate it into your life, because the Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, and very precise. And you'll be able to see that in his own words, but it really helps to have a dedicated practitioner and teacher kind of guide you through your learning. You need to do the learning, but the teacher is there to be like kind of a tour guide and kind of pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand as part of your journey on the path, and how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. So after someone reads this and then I share some teachings on it, I will then open up to questions, that if you are here or you're online and you would like to ask questions about what it is that's being shared, you're more than welcome to do that. So here at the temple, if you would like to either volunteer to read or ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl there in the center of the room. We also have some up here as well. If you could get a microphone and take it back to your seat, just press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on. And then if you hold that up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep this microphone with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then anyone online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand in order to ask questions or volunteer to read, and then just unmute your microphone. So is there anybody here online that would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Yes, ma'am. If you could use a microphone, this will help. The people online won't be able to hear you. We have a bunch of people joining us online, and they'll appreciate it if you use that.
I'll start from the beginning, from the title.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Chapter 2, Awaiting His Time Mindful and Clearly Comprehending. Monks, a monk should await his time mindful and clearly comprehending. This is my instruction to you. And the how, monks, is a monk mindful. Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on the body as body, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having put away craving and displeasure. In regard to the world, he resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly comprehending, mindful, having put away craving and displeasure in regard to the world. It is in such a way that a monk is mindful. And the how monks does a monk exercise clear comprehension? Here, monks, a monk is one who acts with clear comprehension when going forward and returning, when looking ahead and looking aside, when drawing in and extending the limbs, when wearing his robes and carrying his outer robe and the bowl, when eating, drinking, chewing his food and tasting, when defecting and urinating, when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, speaking, and keeping silent. It is in such a way that a monk exercises clear comprehension. A monk should await his time mindful and clearly comprehending. This is my instruction to you. Monks, well monk recite those, mindful and clearly comprehending, diligent, dedicated, determined. If there raises in him a pleasant feeling, he understands thus, there has arisen in me a pleasant feeling. Now that is dependent, not independent. Depend on what? Dependent on this very body. But this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the pleasant feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent?
The microphone's impermanent too. Yeah. Did you press the button? The batteries might be dead. Yeah. You can swap it out.
He resides reflecting on impermanence in the body and unpleasant feelings. He resides reflecting on vanishing, reflecting on fading away, reflecting on elimination, reflecting on letting go. As he resides thus, the underlying tendency to crave in regard to the body envy in regard to pleasant feelings is abandoned by him. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he understands it is impermanent. He understands it is not held to. He understands it is not excited in. If he feels a painful feeling, he understands it is impermanent. He understands it is not held to. He understands it is not excited in. If he feels neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands it is impermanent. He understands it is not held to. He understands it is not excited in. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it without holding on to it. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it without holding on to it. If he feels neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it without holding on to it. When he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands, I feel feeling terminating with the body. When he feels a feeling terminating with life, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with life. He understands, with the breakup of the body, falling exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being excited in, will become cool right here. Just as monks, an oil lamp burns in dependence on the oil and the wick, and with exhaustion of the oil and the wick, it is extinguished through lacks of fuel. So too, monks, when the monk feels a feeling terminating with the body, terminating with life, he understands, with the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being excited in, will become cool right here.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the Buddha's teachings are a path to training your mind to get to a point where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is called the enlightened mental state. You get to the point where your mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. You don't have any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind. Oftentimes people think it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but it's actually what's going on in your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not other people that are making you angry or frustrated. It's physically impossible for someone to insert a feeling into your mind. It's what's going on within your own mind. So the Buddha figured out how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state through training his own mind. And when you do so, not only will you eliminate discontent feelings, but you'll notice that your mind's focused, you have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You need to gradually train your mind to this point. You're uprooting certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And when you uproot these pollutions, your mind will perform optimally. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, because in the unenlightened state, you'll have difficulties in certain relationships. There'll be a certain amount of bitterness, harshness, and hostility within your mind. And when you put that out in your relationships, it's all coming back to you. It's damaging your ability to live with all beings harmoniously. You'll see that by the time you get to enlightenment, you can't even be in a bad mood any longer. It's physically impossible. Oftentimes people think the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You can see it in his own teachings. He describes it. It took him 6 years to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. So it's going to take you some time to gradually train your mind to get to that point. So all of his teachings are something that you're learning, examining, and investigating. You're then reflecting to verify, are they true or are they false? And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life in order to be able to train your mind. So you're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, growing, and developing in this life, becoming a better and better human being to be able to function in the world peacefully. So all the teachings of the Buddha are guiding you to this mental state. The core central teaching of the Buddha is called the Eightfold Path. This is a teaching that you would need to learn inside and out in order to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. This particular teaching, the Buddha is highlighting two particular portions of the Eightfold Path to help you be able to see this in more detail. But it's the Eightfold Path that's going to give you the initial detail of how to practice in order to be able to train your mind. So that's where people usually start. But here, this is volume 4 of our book series, chapter 21. So we have 13 books in the book series that I share to be able to guide you to this enlightened mental state. So here he's talking about mindfulness, and he's talking about clear comprehension, which is actually concentration. So out of the Eightfold Path, there's 8 factors. There's what's called right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Here he's focusing on right mindfulness and right concentration. What mindfulness is in general, before even looking at this, it means awareness of mind. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to build awareness of what's going on in your mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, individuals don't even have awareness of their own mind. The thoughts, the ideas, the feelings that you're having, you might not even be aware of these things. They kind of sneak up on you. You're not necessarily aware of what's going on within your own mind. So you need to build that general awareness. But then more specifically, you need to develop what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And that's what the Buddha is talking about here. He's highlighting what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. When he's talking about that an individual needs to be reflecting on body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects, these are the 4 foundations that before you get angry, before you get frustrated or irritated or even shy or even pleasant feelings like happiness and excitement, there's some bodily sensation that you're experiencing that you may or may not even be aware of right now. With something like anger, it'll be like tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. You're about to get irritated or annoyed. And what the Buddha teaches you is with that mindfulness or awareness of mind, that you apply what's called right effort to be able to cut that off and let it go. You're not suppressing your feeling or repressing it. You're actually cutting it off before it even becomes a feeling. It hasn't even become a feeling yet. It's just a bodily sensation at that point. So it's kind of like if you were going to cross the sea from, say, Australia to Indonesia, and you're out in the middle of the sea, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with now. You've got to get the water out. The same thing is true. If you allow your mind to become angry or frustrated or any of these other discontent feelings, you've got to get it out. And that's what the Buddha starts talking about a little bit later, right? So if you allow the anger to penetrate into the mind, now you've got to get rid of it. And that's a lot more challenging. So what the Buddha teaches you is to build this awareness of mind where you can notice as a bodily sensation that discontent feelings are starting to arise. And now you can cut that off and let it go. So if you're checking into the airport, and let's just say you're expecting to leave in about 1 hour and you're checking in your bags, and the airline attendant or the airline ticket agent says, "Sorry, ma'am, sorry, sir, you can't check in yet. Your flight's not leaving for 3 hours." And you're like, "Whoa, I thought I was leaving in 1 hour." And you start noticing this anger starting to arise as a bodily sensation. It's not the airline company that's causing this. It's your own mind. Your mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. I want every airplane to take off on time. It's not possible. Because you live in an impermanent world. There's going to be maintenance issues, crew issues. There's going to be, weather issues. These things are going to occur if you travel enough. So if you're getting angry and frustrated in that situation, it's not the airline company that's causing it. And being bitter and harsh and hostile to the ticket agent isn't going to solve anything that's going on in your life. So when you notice that anger starting to arise, you would like to apply the effort to cut that off and let it go. Or any other thing that's going on in your life that you're noticing anger and frustration or any of these other feelings arising, whether it's a conditioned, pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant. Because these pleasant feelings that you experience, they're based on a condition. So for example, if you look outside and it's sunny and you get really happy and excited about that, that's a conditioned pleasant feeling. You're basing your happiness on the sun. And because the sun is not permanent, that means when it rains, you'll be sad or frustrated. So if you allow your mind to get a conditioned pleasant feeling, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. If you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, that means when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. So you need to cut off and let go of conditioned feelings, whether they're pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, because they're temporary. What the Buddha is guiding you to is a point where you're happy all the time, where you're having joy all the time. This is called unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to experience the happiness and the joy. But you can't ever get to that if you keep allowing your mind to experience conditioned happiness, that you can only be happy if certain conditions are met. So, for example, in the unenlightened state, someone might think, if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this much money in my bank account and I have this kind of house and this kind of car, then I'll be happy. Right? There's all these conditions, right? And for all those things to be met, that means that there's a lot of things that have to occur, and your happiness is shrinking. You're sabotaging your ability to be happy because you have all these conditions. So when you have these conditions in your mind that you want certain things in order to be happy, your happiness is not permanent. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness and permanent joy, because your mind is forming its feelings on some external circumstances. And these external circumstances are not permanent. So as soon as you allow your mind to base its happiness on some external circumstance, you're guaranteeing that you're not going to be happy permanently, because as soon as that thing changes, you're no longer happy. So the Buddha teaches you that when you notice these feelings arising as a bodily sensation, to cut it off and let it go. But because your mind isn't well trained at this point, and there's still training that you need to do, you're going to miss it as a bodily sensation sometimes. So it's going to become a feeling. That's the next best place to cut it off. If the mind's angered or frustrated and you're noticing that with your mindfulness, cut it off and let it go. If you miss it there, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. That's where he says mind as mind. Have you ever been grumpy or irritable for like a few days or like a week or two? Have you guys ever experienced that? Of course you have, right? Because you didn't understand what the Buddha was teaching. So you missed it as a bodily sensation. You didn't cut it off there. You didn't cut it off as a feeling. And now for a few hours, a few days, a week or two, you were grumpy and irritable. And it's no fun walking around like that. And if you can be aware of that condition of mind, you can catch it sooner and sooner and sooner and cut it back. And then there's something called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. In this example, it's ill will. We weren't born with ill will. We didn't have ill will when we were born. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? We developed that over time from our experiences in life. Because the mind had craving and a lack of wisdom, we experienced anger and frustration, and we assumed and we believed that it's the outside world causing these feelings. But that's not the case. So when we were a little kid and we went to mom and dad and we were like, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? They were like, sure, you can have chocolate and ice cream. Here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. And we're like, thank you, Mommy and Daddy. You're so nice. You're so kind. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. And then the second day, we were like, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? They're like, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Thank you, Mommy and Daddy. You're so great. Right? We were so happy. And then the third day came around and we were like, Mommy and Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. You're the worst Mommy and Daddy ever, right? We were so angry. Well, it wasn't Mom and Dad that was causing that. That was our craving for permanence. We wanted that chocolate and ice cream, and we could only be happy if we got what we wanted, right? And when you're not getting what you want or what you expect, the mind's going to experience painful feelings. And now this deeply rooted container of ill will starts to develop in your mind, and it gets fed over time to the point where you might wish harm on other people. And this is only harming your own mind. Right? If you continue to hold on to this ill will where you think that other people should be harmed, this is just going to cause you difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day life, because it's going to come out in certain situations where when you're driving in traffic or you're walking down the street or you're in a business meeting or some other time, that deeply rooted container of ill will is going to come out. And now through your intention, speech, and actions, you're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile. So the Buddha is teaching you to be aware of these mental objects. They're called the 10 fetters. They're 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha governed, and he teaches you about what these are so that you can uproot them and eliminate them out of the mind. So you're going to need awareness of these things. So you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. This meditation that we just did, it's called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is training your mind to cultivate that mindfulness or that awareness of mind. So when you're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, and you cut that off and let it go and come back to your breath, that's building that internal mechanism in your mind that you can cut off and let go. So that if you're doing this regularly and consistently over the course of your life, when you're in the airport and you're noticing the anger coming up in your mind, you can cut it off and let it go. Right? And if you do this enough, eventually you won't have anger in your mind. It'll be completely gone because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it. So for example, if you're watching TV and you're watching the news and you notice that anger starting to come up in your mind, that's your mindfulness. That's your awareness of mind, that you're noticing the bodily sensations of the anger starting to arise. Well, rather than just sit there and watch the news and allow your mind to dwell and form that feeling of anger, what the Buddha is teaching you is to apply right effort to redirect the mind. Take the mind in a different direction. Cut that off. Go for a walk, go for a bike ride, go to the kitchen and get a glass of water, go to the bathroom, wash your hands, do something else. Don't just sit there and watch the news and allow your mind to become angry and irritated and frustrated because your mind's just going to stay wired that way. If you do this enough where you redirect your mind and cut off and let go, eventually your mind won't get angry. You can just sit there and watch the news, and no matter what's on the news, the anger doesn't arise. So oftentimes people think anger is arising because of your love or your care or something like this. This isn't actually true. Your anger is arising because of the mind's craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. And in the case of the news, the mind is craving and worried about the world. The mind wants the world to be a certain way. So that's why the Buddha says here that you need to remove this craving and displeasure in regard to the world. Because if you don't understand how the world works, you will have craving and displeasure in regard to the world. You will crave for the world to be a certain way. And when it's not that way, you will get angry and frustrated. Because the mind in the unenlightened state thinks the world should function according to you. That's the mind's ego, where the mind doesn't actually function according to you. The world doesn't function according to you. It functions based on these natural laws that the Buddha is teaching you. So here in this first little paragraph, he's teaching you to develop this mindfulness or this awareness of mind, because you're going to need that in order to be able to apply effort to be able to purify the mind. Then the next thing he's teaching you is to practice what's called singleness of mind. He describes it this way in other parts of his teachings. Here, he's not using the words singleness of mind, but he does use that in other parts of his teachings, where he's helping you to understand how to practice right concentration as part of the Eightfold Path. That everything you do, you need to have singleness of mind, focus, concentration, and clarity. But the mind will have a difficult time doing that in the unenlightened state because it hasn't been trained that way. If you're washing dishes, your mind might wander and be thinking about, I can't wait to get to Thailand. Oh man, it's going to be fun. I can't wait to get to Thailand. They got mango and sticky rice and massages, and I'm going to play with the elephants. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. But next thing you know, when your mind's wandering, thinking about Thailand while you're washing dishes, you end up cutting your hand with a knife, and now you end up needing to go to the hospital and get stitches because you're not focused and concentrated. Or maybe you're in a business meeting, right? And your boss is over there talking, wonk, 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 and your mind is wandering, thinking about something else, right? You're not applying your effort and energy in the situation at work, and now you're not performing as well as you could. So the Buddha is teaching you to practice singleness of mind, where you're just focused on one thing at a time. And as you do that, you'll hone your mind, and it'll get to the point where you're always focused. There's no effort involved in actually having the focus and concentration because it's just always there. But if you never understand that that's what you need to do, and you don't train your mind that way, you will let your mind wander and frolic around like a wild animal in the forest. So you would like to hone your mind and discipline your mind, and so that you can now control your mind. Because when you're angry and frustrated, you can't control your mind. Your mind's controlling you. So the Buddha is teaching you how to get this discipline and this control of your mind. One of the ways that I think about this is that if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding that back and forth, when you first start doing that, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth on the wood for long enough, you're going to get a nice groove going. And now it's going to be in that groove. But every once in a while, it's going to pop out. And when it pops out, you're going to know that, and you're going to bring it right back to the groove. But if you grind the steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get such a deep groove that it's never going to pop out. And that's the way your mind works. That when you first start practicing singleness of mind, your mind's going to bounce around a lot. But if you notice that and you just keep bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back, eventually you're going to get a really nice groove where your mind's going to be nice and focused. And it's just going to be focused all the time. And you might even be practicing this right now while you're listening to me. Maybe while I'm talking, you're thinking about lunch, or you're thinking about that massage you're going to be getting a little bit later, or some other thing you might be thinking about that you're maybe going home in a couple of days. When your mind's wandering like that, come back to whatever it is that you're doing so that you can gain the benefit of that particular thing. You need to just do one thing at a time. Oftentimes people think they can multitask. It's physically impossible for you to multitask. Your mind can only do one thing at a time. In the 1960s, when computers came out, that's when they started thinking human beings should be able to multitask. So people started teaching human beings to multitask. Prior to that, nobody was talking about multitasking, right? But in the 1960s, when computers came out, they have a CPU in there and they can actually multitask because they have a multiple processor, right? But human beings, they can only do one thing at a time. What you're actually doing when you think you're multitasking is you're doing something for 3 to 5 seconds. You're rapidly cycling to something else for 5 to 8 seconds. Then you're rapidly cycling to something else for 10 seconds. And then you're rapidly cycling back over to here. It's kind of like a horse running around a horse track. And if you've ever been to a race track where horses are actually racing, they race around the horse track. But then when they go to the barn, they have a really hard time to calm down. They're really hyped up. They have a lot of stress and anxiety because they've been running around the horse track. Well, if you do that all day at work or in your personal life for 8-10 hours where you're racing around and racing around and racing around, when you get home, you're going to have a hard time to relax and be comfortable. You're going to have a lot of stress and anxiety. So you like to just do one thing at a time in each part of your day, and you'll notice your mind's performing better, and you'll notice that you'll sleep better. You'll notice that you'll be able to do things much better by just focusing on one thing at a time. There are some people who didn't understand this about life, that it's wise to just do one thing at a time, and these people are actually dead right now. The reason why is they were walking down the street talking on the phone, and as they were walking down the street talking on the phone, they stepped out in the middle of the street and whack, and they're dead right now. This is the natural laws. This is cause and effect. It's not any being who's overseeing what we experience. It's our own decisions that are resulting in any particular thing that we experience, right? It's cause and effect, or action and result. We call this Gama, or the natural law of Gama. Some people call it karma. This is a natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. It's not about blame or fault. It's not about, who's right or wrong. It's none of that. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's about whatever decisions you make are going to lead to certain results. And if you don't practice singleness of mind, your mind's going to be running around and it's going to be really hard to focus it, and you might do these kinds of things. But if you understand the natural laws and what the Buddha is teaching you about your mind, now you can hone your mind. You can fix your mind so that it's not bouncing around all the time. One of the ways that I think about the teachings of the Buddha is it's kind of like an instruction manual to this being who you are. That's essentially what he's giving you. Nobody handed you an instruction manual to this being who you are. But nowadays, if you buy something, pretty much everything has an instruction manual. There's a pitcher of water on my desk at home. I guarantee you that pitcher of water came with an instruction manual because it has like one of those little push buttons on the top, and you have to open the lid in a certain way. It probably came with an instruction manual. But nobody gave you an instruction manual to this being who you are. That's what the Buddha is giving you. He's explaining to you how this mind works. He's explaining to you how the world around you works. And now with that wisdom, you can navigate the world peacefully. So he's teaching you to train your mind to have this clear clear comprehension that no matter what you're doing, just do one thing at a time. And I think this is kind of funny where he has in here, I know he didn't mean it to be funny, but where he says when defecating and urinating, basically just doing one thing at a time. Have you ever sat on the toilet and used your phone? Right? This is why some people drop their phone in the toilet, and next thing you know, they got to buy a new phone. This is their unwholesome karma because they weren't doing one thing at a time, right? So the Buddha could have never imagined we would have been sitting on toilets playing with the electronic device, but he was teaching it. Just do one thing at a time. If you're urinating, urinate. If you're defecating, defecate. And you'll notice that stuff will actually happen a lot easier if you're actually doing just one thing at a time. You know, in the old days, I used to read magazines or newspapers when they're sitting on the toilet. If you do that kind of stuff, it's going to make it a lot harder for you to do your business and get out of there and go enjoy the rest of your day. You end up sitting there on the toilet forever and ever and ever trying to actually do what you need to do. So the Buddha is teaching you to just do one thing at a time. This is practicing singleness of mind. Then what he goes into is with that mindfulness, that awareness of mind, and that focus and concentration, the singleness of mind, that whenever these feelings are arising, whatever feeling is arising, that you don't hold on to it. You don't cling to it. That if a pleasant feeling arises, you understand it's impermanent, right? Not allow the mind to excite in it. Don't allow the mind to hold on to it, right? If you understand to not allow your mind to hold on to it, then you can cut it off and let it go. And more, you'll get to the point where you're not experiencing conditioned pleasant feelings. Instead, you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy, where you can just always be joyful. And then the same thing with painful feelings. Don't hold on to those. The whole goal would be to cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. But because your mind's not well trained, it will become a feeling sometimes. And when you notice that, don't hold on to it. Let it go. Understand it's impermanent, right? Sometimes when you're experiencing stress or anxiety or sadness or guilt or shame, you just think that it's going to last forever, where in reality, that feeling is not permanent. And you can cut it off and let it go if you've been training your mind that way. Then there's something called neither painful nor pleasant feelings. This is like shyness. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. It's kind of uncomfortable or dissatisfying. So those types of feelings you would like to cut off and let go of too. So that's what the Buddha talks about here. Now he says when a feeling is coming and terminating with the body, you understand that. That's what you would like to do, is terminate these feelings as a bodily sensation, not allowing it to arise and become an actual feeling in the mind. Because once it becomes a feeling, now your mind has a lot more difficult time getting rid of it. But again, because your mind's not well trained yet, it's going to sometimes become a feeling. Even as you're progressing on this path, you're in the first, second, even third stage of enlightenment, you're still going to be experiencing some conditioned feelings, but those are going to be becoming less and less and less. As you're progressing on the path, you're going to notice progress all the way along the way. It's not like the Buddha trained his mind for 6 years and then magically he started experiencing some kind of benefit. He was actually experiencing benefit all the way through, right? So it's the same thing for you. I've seen some students as short as 2 days of training, they're already starting to notice some benefit along the way. So even though your goal is to cut off and let go of these feelings as a bodily sensation, just understand you're not going to always be able to do that, and cut it off as soon as possible. If you miss it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. If you miss it as a feeling, cut it off as a condition of the mind. And then you're going to also need to be aware of those mental objects. And this is something that you can learn as part of all of this. And then the Buddha gives a little analogy here, a little simile, that helps you understand the exhaustion of these cravings, desires, attachments, that when you exhaust this pollution in the mind, you'll exhaust the effect. Just like an oil lamp burns on dependence of oil in the wick, in the exhaustion of the oil and wick, there's exhaustion there. There's a lack of fuel. The same thing is true, that when your feeling is terminating at the body, over time, you will exhaust the fuel that is producing those feelings, because you need to cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. Another analogy to maybe use here is that if you had a wild bush growing and you cut this back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back, and eventually you uproot this out of the ground, it will never grow back again. So when these feelings are arising, if you cut it back and cut it back and cut it back all the way to a bodily sensation, and you can cut it off there, eventually you will uproot the craving, desire, attachment that's producing that feeling, and you will never experience it ever again, because your mind is no longer longing, yearning, and craving permanence in that particular situation. So that's what we did with chocolate and ice cream. We'll circle this all the way back around. When we were kids, man, we were upset and angry when we didn't get chocolate and ice cream. But what about now? You're not upset and angry if you don't get chocolate and ice cream. Whereas a kid, if we had chocolate and ice cream every single day, oh my gosh, that was such a good day. We were so happy. But if we didn't get chocolate and ice cream, we were grumpy or irritable. Well, now that's not the case, because you've eliminated that craving. One of the ways you eliminated it is by extinguishing it, by fulfilling it. You had enough chocolate and ice cream as a child where now you're like, I could have chocolate and ice cream today. That'd be fine. But if I don't have it, that's okay too. Where at one time in our life, it wasn't that way because we had a craving. So eventually our mind let it go. And we decided, you know what? We don't need that every day. We no longer crave that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. And that's why you're peaceful and joyful related to that topic. But you're going to need to do this on other things too, because you have cravings in your mind. You might crave for your mom and dad to talk to you a certain way. You might crave for your mom and dad to be permanently healthy. You might crave for your brothers and sisters to do things a certain way. They're not going to do it that way. Your mind's craving permanence. Your parents aren't going to be permanently happy. They're not going to be permanently healthy. They're going to experience change because of impermanence. So when they're unhealthy, you might actually be sad or frustrated or feel guilty or shameful as a child, feeling like you should have taken care of your parents. But the fact is that they're born, so they're going to get sick, they're going to age, and they're going to eventually die. Every single one of us are going to experience this because we are all impermanent. But if your mind craves permanence, when your parents are experiencing this, you'll really struggle. Or when you're experiencing this, you'll really struggle. That when you're sick, you might crave to be healthy, but you can't be permanently healthy. It's not possible. Or when you age and you see wrinkles and pimples and moles and you start getting gray hair, or you start getting a little extra weight, you might be grumpy or irritable about this. This is the mind craving permanence. Your body's going to age. It's going to change. That is impermanence. So that's what the Buddha is helping you to see here. So any questions on this chapter here that the Buddha is teaching? Remember, online you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or here we have microphones for you guys. No questions? Okay. Let me see. I don't see any questions online either. Okay. So let's go to the next chapter then. Okay, let's see what we've got here. This is, by the way, what you guys have in each one of these chapters is you have the words of the Buddha. You have a reference here that takes you back to the original source teaching, so you can see in the Pali Canon, where did this come from? And then you've got words from me helping you understand, like what I was just teaching you. Here, this is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, explaining all of that, what these things are, so that you now integrate this into your day-to-day life, okay? So these books, you can actually get them at no cost. You can download them from our website. You can take them and go print them yourself. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon. This way you can get access to the original source teachings of the Buddha. I suggest students start with the first book. This is volume 4, but the first book is laying a foundation and laying a structure, kind of a framework. This is the best place to start. So you can get these for free if you like. So is there someone who would like to read this one? I think it's actually a lot shorter, if I remember correctly. That's a little bit shorter. Would someone here or online like to read this one? You'd like to read? Okay.
Nothing is worth adhering to. Then a certain monk approached the perfectly enlightened one and said to him, "Venerable sir, is there one thing through the abandonment of which ignorance, unknowing of true reality, is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises?" "There is one thing, monk, through the abandoning of which ignorance, unknowing of true reality, is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises. And what is that one thing, Venerable Sir? Ignorance, monk, is that one thing through the abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises. But, Venerable Sir, how should a monk know? How should he see? For ignorance to be abandoned by him and true wisdom to arise. Here, monk, a monk has heard, nothing is worth adhering to. When a monk has heard, nothing is worth adhering to, he directly knows everything. Having directly known everything, he fully understands everything. Having fully understood everything, he sees all things differently. He sees the eye differently. He sees forms differently. He sees eye consciousness differently. He sees eye contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. He sees the ear differently. He sees sound differently. He sees ear consciousness differently. He sees ear contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with ear contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. He sees the nose differently. He sees odors differently. He sees nose consciousness differently. He sees nose contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with nose contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. He sees the tongue differently. He sees flavors differently. He sees tongue consciousness differently. He sees tongue contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with tongue contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. He sees the body differently. He sees physical objects differently. He sees body consciousness differently. He sees body contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with body contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. He sees the mind differently. He sees mental objects differently. He sees mind consciousness differently. He sees mind contact differently. And whatever feeling arises with mind contact as condition, experiencing pleasure, pain, or neither painful nor pleasant, that too he sees differently. When, monk, a monk knows and sees thus, ignorance, unknowing of true reality, is abandoned by him and true wisdom arises.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the number one problem that the Buddha discovered in the unenlightened mind is what's called a lack of wisdom, or some people translate it as ignorance. As you see, I put in there unknowing of true reality, because I understand that a Buddha, an enlightened being, isn't going to call someone ignorant. That's a derogatory, degrading way to refer to someone. And an enlightened being isn't going to be diminishing and degrading to others. Instead, he's going to use phrases like lack of wisdom or confusion, misunderstanding, or the unknowing of true reality. The unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. For example, in the unenlightened mind, we will firmly believe that it's other people who are causing us to be angry or frustrated. You might actually have that thought in your mind right now. If you haven't penetrated into the Four Noble Truths, which is the very first teaching of the Buddha, where he helps you to be able to see and independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you might firmly believe that it's other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated. But this is the mind's lack of wisdom. It's not actually true. It's not other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's what's going on in your own mind. So because of the mind's lack of wisdom, the confusion, the misunderstanding, this unknowing of true reality, the mind continues to crave. It continues to long and yearn, seeking pleasure externally. And when you get what you want, you're happy and you're excited. But when you don't get what you want, you're angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And when that anger is arising, you will firmly believe that it's the outside world that's causing it. And what you'll tend to do is you'll tend to become unskillful, where you'll push people away, or you'll push the situation away. You might have pushed away friends or family out of your life, thinking that that would solve your problem. But you can see that didn't solve your problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated or annoyed. If this person was the true cause of your problem, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll tend to put your expectations on people, where you're trying to pressure them or control them to do things your way. And people might actually be doing these things to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting pressure on you to try to convince you to do things their way. I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out arguments where you've been trying to convince the other person, you've got to stop doing this or else I'm going to continue to get angry. They're not making you angry. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting everybody to do it this way. And you can only be happy when people do it your way. But you need to understand impermanence, that not everybody is going to do it that way, that the world is impermanent and there's multiple right ways to do things. But the unenlightened mind with its ego will think my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. So it craves everybody to do it this way. And you like people that do it this way. But then when people do it this way, you dislike them. And that dislike is coming from your own mind. It's not coming from the outside world. So you need to get to the point where you understand that people are making decisions differently in the world, and not everybody's going to make decisions the same way as you. There's actually only one person in the world that makes decisions your way 100% of the time. Do you know who this person is that makes decisions your way 100% of the time? Yourself. That's it. So if you can only be happy when people do things your way, you can only be happy with yourself. And you probably even have trouble doing that from time to time. You probably get angry and frustrated at yourself sometimes, right? So you need to be able to understand that the world is full of impermanence. And as soon as you allow your mind to crave permanence, you're sabotaging your ability to be happy permanently. So the Buddha is bringing this to your attention through this question that his students are asking him. He's saying, Venerable Sir, is there one thing that through abandoning of which ignorance, this unknowing of true reality, is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises? Because that's the way you actually get to enlightenment, is you got to eradicate this ignorance that the mind has. And the way you do that is through the cultivation of wisdom. And what the Buddha teaches in other discourses is that you need to learn, investigate, and examine teachings. You need to reflect on them to verify if they're true or false. And then you need to practice his teachings. That's the way to actually get to wisdom. But here they're kind of having a more summarized conversation where the Buddha says, yeah, there's one thing through abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises. And he says, okay, well, what is that one thing? The Buddha is just going to teach whatever it is that students ask him. He's not pushing his teachings on people. He's not forcing his teachings on people. He's just answering questions that his students are asking him. So his students are saying, well, what's that one thing? He said, well, ignorance, monk, is the one thing that through abandoning of which ignorance is abandoned by a monk and true wisdom arises. And then he says, okay, Venerable Sir, how should a monk know? How should he see for ignorance to be abandoned by him and true wisdom arising? Well, the first thing that you need to understand in order for this wisdom to arise is, here, monk, a monk has heard nothing is worth adhering to. When a monk has heard nothing is worth adhering to, he directly knows everything. What he's saying here is that understand the universal truth of impermanence. If you're holding on to things and craving for it to be permanent, then that means it's going to cause pain. It's going to hurt you. For example, this mobile phone that you guys have, if you hold on to this and you crave for it to be permanent, when you misplace it, when it breaks, when someone steals it, when something happens to this phone, you're going to be really shaken up because you want it to be permanent and it's not permanent. It's going to break. You're going to lose it. Someone's going to steal it. It's going to stop working at some point. But if you hold on to it and crave for it to be permanent, your mind's going to be really shaken up. So what the Buddha is saying is there's nothing worth adhering to. You need to take care of this, but you can't hold on to it and crave for it to be permanent. So for example, on one side, if you're holding on to it and craving for it to be permanent, when you don't have it, your mind's going to be shaken up. But on the other side, if you were like, I don't care, and you just toss your phone around everywhere and it breaks every week or every few days, you're not going to be happy and peaceful there either. So you've got to come to the middle where you understand, hey, it's nice to have a phone, and this is helpful because it allows me to order food, it allows me to communicate, it allows me to find information, but don't adhere to it and crave for it to be permanent. So what I would encourage you to do is something like this, is leave it at home sometimes, just to train your mind. Maybe leave it at home and go outside for 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and go do some things. And then when you come home, don't rush to your phone and take a look at it. And just leave it where it's at. And now do that for a particular situation. And you'll see that you might feel uncomfortable going outside without your phone. You might feel fear in your mind, but that's your mind's craving not being fulfilled. Your mind is craving for this phone to be permanent, and you can only be happy if you have your phone with you. When you don't have your phone, your mind is shaken up. So go outside without it sometimes. Go spend time around doing different things, and do that maybe once or twice a week for a few weeks, and train your mind to be just as happy when you have your phone as when you don't have your phone. And now at some point in the future, if you accidentally leave your phone at home, your mind's completely peaceful, no worries. But if you allow this craving to exist in your mind, when you go outside and you realize you don't have your phone, you're going to be really shaken up by that. So you're going to need to take concerted effort to actually train your mind to let go of this craving, and leaving something like your phone at home occasionally will help you to be able to do that. And when you've been able to do that 2 or 3 or 4 times and you notice your mind's completely peaceful and joyful when you're outside without your phone, then just start taking your phone out, because you can now use it regularly. But for a period of time while you're training your mind, you're going to need to occasionally go outside without it. And this will train your mind to let it go. So nothing is worth adhering to, is what he's saying. Nothing is worth craving and clinging. There's no such thing as a wholesome craving. Sometimes people think there's wholesome cravings and unwholesome cravings. But even if you crave meditation, your mind's going to be discontent. If you can meditate, you'll be happy. But if you can't meditate, you'll be sad or frustrated. There's no such thing as a wholesome craving. That's why the Buddha says there's nothing worth adhering to. So he says, once this person understands this, he directly knows everything. The Buddha doesn't mean like literally everything in the world, because you're not going to know how to fly an airplane, right? Just because you know this, you're not going to know how to fly an airplane. What he's saying is, you know everything that there is to need to know to really get started on this path to enlightenment and moving forward to be able to train your mind. Then he goes into something that we actually talked about a little bit last week in this course, which is in this program, which is the 6 sense bases. There's something called the eye, which you guys are familiar with, right? There's a physical eye. Then there's what's called forms. Forms are the physical objects that the eye sees. Then there's something called eye consciousness. What eye consciousness is when there's the physical eye and then there's the form. When the mind becomes aware of what it's seeing, that's called eye consciousness. So if you have the eye in your body, and now this finger is the form, when your eye becomes aware, when your mind becomes aware that this finger is here and you can see it, that's your eye consciousness. And the way that that all came about is through what's called eye contact. So eye consciousness is the mind becoming aware of the physical form through the eye. Eye contact is the combination of the eye, the form, and the consciousness. So we now say that the mind has been contacted, right? So when you have this finger up, there's multiple things happening. That there's the eye in the body, there's the physical form, your mind becomes aware of it. Now we say your mind has been contacted. So this is called eye contact. The same thing's happening with the ear. There's the ear, then there's a sound. When the mind becomes aware of the sound, that's called ear consciousness. And now we say that you've been contacted through the ear. And then there's the nose. Then there's the odor. When the mind becomes aware of the odor, now we can say that the mind's been contacted through the nose, right? So these are called the 6 sense bases. The reason why this is important for you to understand is that you're experiencing discontentedness because you're having contact through your sense bases, and it's triggering one of your cravings, desires, attachments. Your mind is viewing this contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind as either agreeable and you'll get pleasant feelings, or you're viewing it as disagreeable and you will get painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So for example, if you're at a stoplight and someone pulls up to you in a car with music that you particularly like, and this is music that you listen to, you might be like, wow, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Party, party, party. Well, there's the ear, there's the sound, there's the ear consciousness, which means your mind's become aware of it. And now you've been contacted through the ear and you see that sound as agreeable. And you're like dancing in your seat. You're having a good old time, right? Because this is agreeable to you. But now you pull up to the next traffic light and you hear a sound. You hear another type of music that you don't listen to. And you consider this to be disagreeable. Well, now you get angry, you get frustrated because this contact that's coming through your ear, you see it as disagreeable because your mind's craving permanently agreeable contact. Where you live in an impermanent world, you're not going to hear permanently agreeable sounds. But as long as your mind has that craving for permanence, now when you hear that sound that you don't like, that you see to be consider to be disagreeable, you're going to get frustrated or angry or irritated. So this is happening through all your senses. If you're walking down the street and you smell flowers coming out of a flower shop, you might be like, wow, that smells so good. Oh my gosh, that's an amazing smell. But now you walk a couple more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer, and now you're frustrated, you're angry, you're like, oh, that's horrible. You're repulsed by that because your mind is seeing the contact as either agreeable or disagreeable. Well, an enlightened being sees it differently. That's what the Buddha is saying here, that an individual sees it differently. You don't see it as something to please the mind. So for example, coming down here to the tongue, we will see flavors when you eat food. You will see the goal of this food is to please your mind. And you might be looking around for foods that when it touches your tongue, you get pleasant feelings. But then when you eat this other type of food, you don't like it and your mind gets painful feelings. That's because you have this agreeable and disagreeable way of looking at the contact that you're experiencing. This is called sensual desire, that you're seeing this contact that you're experiencing, that it should be pleasing all the time. The mind wants permanently agreeable contact through the senses, where in reality you live in an impermanent world. So you need to be able to see it differently, that sometimes you're going to have contact through the sense bases. That's something that you prefer. But other times you're going to have contact through the sense bases, which is not something that you prefer. And this is normal. This is the world of impermanence. So you're going to have some people who are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to you. You hear their voice, they talk to you in a lovely way, very endearing. But then you're going to have some people that talk to you in grumpy and irritable and nasty ways. That's impermanence. But your mind is craving permanence. So when you hear someone talk to you in an endearing and lovely way, if you allow your mind to get pleasant feelings, when this person talks to you in a grumpy and irritable way, a disrespectful way, you're going to get painful feelings. You're going to get angry and frustrated. It's being triggered by your craving in your mind, craving permanence. Now, this person who's being grumpy and irritable, I would say they're speaking in an unwise way, but that's not what's causing your anger and frustration. It's your mind's craving for permanence. So an individual who's training their mind, they see all these things differently. That's what the Buddha is saying here, is that you understand it's impermanent and you're no longer looking for agreeable and disagreeable contact. You just start seeing it as contact. It's just a sound. That person is choosing to say some sounds and they're either going to be nice and lovely or they're going to be being upset and angry and frustrated, but you don't have to form feelings based on what other people choose to do. You can just understand this is impermanence and just keep walking and choose to not engage with that, right? So that's what the Buddha is saying here, is you need to cultivate this wisdom to understand that the world is impermanent and nothing is worth adhering to. If you crave permanence, then that means when you hear someone say something lovely and agreeable, you'll adhere to that and you'll hold on to that. And you'll be like, oh, this is so wonderful. This person is talking to me this way. But then when someone talks to you in another way, you'll be angry or frustrated. All this is impermanence. I would advise that person to speak more wisely, but you're going to encounter people who speak to you in unkind ways. It's going to happen. Even when you're enlightened, you're going to experience this. So you need to get to the point where you're unaffected by this impermanence that's happening in the world. So any questions on this chapter? You would like to ask a question? I saw you. Yeah, go for it.
First of all, I want to say, thank you to you, because it gives me a lot of thinkings.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about this chapter. So I have a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
but I will try to organize that and shortly and clearly. So to be honest, I wouldn't say myself as an atheist. To be honest, I don't really believe in any religions, but I respect all of them. I was born and grown up in a mixture pot of religions. The place I was born in, people believe in Taoism. So they worship the Mazu a lot. And then, so I was living in UK before, and people believe in Christian. And now I'm living in Malaysia, and people believe in Buddhism, Christian, and Taoism, and Christian, and Muslim, a lot, Islam. And somehow I feel like I should believe in something, at least one religion, but it's just feel like hard for me to believe in one. So my first question is, but by the way, I don't really believe in science right now. So sometimes I fall into the emptiness. So I'm thinking that, do you think it is necessary for people to find their own religion, or they should choose one religion? Is it possible? Is it possible and necessary to find that? Because somehow I feel like the religions are hypothetical, based on the person I know, the Christians, the Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I feel like these are so hypothetical. So I cannot just put myself believing in that. Okay, but somehow I feel like they are living in happiness, because they have their own belief.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, my friend, lots of them are Muslims, and they told me that they have many religious rules right now, because for example, no smoking, no alcohol, no premarital sex or something, but because they are waiting for the end of the day, and when the day is coming, they will be judged by the God, and they see they are going to the heaven or the hell.
Mm-hmm.
So they are living for the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they feel that in this life, what they need to do is to be cleared out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we should choose our own religion. And
Okay.
this is my first question. And second of all,
Let's do one at a time.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first, let's make sure we understand the difference between religion versus what the Buddha taught, because the Buddha's teachings, in my opinion, aren't a religion. It really depends on how you think about religion. If you think about religion as one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, if you think about religion as rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayers, if you think about religion as rules and commandments, this isn't what the Buddha did. There's not one person at the top of Buddhism telling everyone what to do. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer in his teachings. You might see it in temples that people are doing those things, but that's not what the Buddha actually taught. Those are misunderstandings of his teachings. And the Buddha didn't teach rules and commandments that you need to follow, because that would be a black and white world. That would be do it this way, always do it this way, and never do it this way. That's permanence, right? You can't get to a situation like that. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't like a decision tree that if this happens, do that. And if this happens, do that. So if you think of religion in that way, The teachings of the Buddha are not a religion. There are no beliefs in his teachings. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about an afterlife. It's about getting to a wonderful life now, in this life. And that's the beauty about his teachings, because the more you cultivate this wisdom that he's teaching, you'll be able to see your life's improving. The condition of your mind's improving. Your relationships are improving. So because you're learning now, you're reflecting now, you're practicing now, you experience the results now in this life. You're becoming a better and better human being in this life. So it's not about an afterlife. The people who think that they should be a really good person in this life and then they're going to get judged at the end of this life and be sent to a good place or a bad place, they're having this lack of wisdom, this ignorance, this unknowing of true reality, because that's not the way the world actually truly works, that you're actually being reborn multiple times. And each time you come into this world, you have an opportunity to cultivate wisdom. And the more wisdom that you cultivate, you'll be able to get closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. Even this cycle of rebirth that the Buddha taught, it's nothing to believe in. You should never believe in the cycle of rebirth. Don't believe what I say. Don't believe what I write in books. But instead, you learn, you reflect, and you practice, because the cycle of rebirth is something you can independently verify. Those people who think they're going to die and either go to heaven or hell, they're very much mistaken. That in fact, if they're living their life in unwise ways in this life and they're just believing and hoping something good's going to happen to them, that's not the way that this all works. You need to figure it out during your life and get to enlightenment now so you can experience a wonderful life now. It's not about an afterlife. So in my opinion, your question was, should you pick one religion? If I were you, I wouldn't pick any religion at all. And you asked me, should you believe? You shouldn't believe in any of these things. You instead should learn, reflect, and practice, cultivate wisdom, train your mind, become a better and better person. Don't subscribe to any types of rules or commandments or rituals or ceremonies. None of that kind of stuff is going to lead to a better life for yourself. But if you cultivate wisdom and you know the truth about how the world truly works, now you can make wise decisions that's going to improve your life on a day-to-day basis. And you'll see that that's occurring as you're improving your life day by day. You're welcome. Okay. Yes, sir. You have a question?
About impermanence of the feeling, and this chapter talks about the senses and the consciousness. So I was wondering, how is that leading to a permanent content, or is that, or does it lead to a permanent content?
Sure. So in the unenlightened mind, you're experiencing what's called conditioned feelings, because there's certain conditions in your mind that are leading to these feelings to arise, to change, and fade away. So craving, desire, attachment is a condition that with that longing, yearning in your mind, if you get what you want, you'll be happy. And if you don't get what you want, you'll be sad or frustrated. This is what's called a conditioned mind. There are certain pollutions in the mind. And because the unenlightened mind is conditioned, you'll experience conditioned feelings, which arise, change, and fade away. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're experiencing what's called an unconditioned mind. You've purified your mind. You've removed the pollutions out of your mind. Your mind is now purified. So in this unconditioned mind, there are no causes and conditions that are producing conditioned feelings. So you no longer experience conditioned feelings when you're in the enlightened mental state. You're not experiencing conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. Instead, you're experiencing unconditioned mental qualities where the mind is just always peaceful and always joyful. It's always bright. It's always cheerful. It's always glad. It's always uplifted. And there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for you to experience that. So in the unenlightened state, you'll wake up, you'll see it's sunny, and you'll get really happy and excited about that. But then when it rains, you'll be sad or frustrated. Or when you're in the unenlightened state, when your bank account is up here, you'll be happy and excited. But when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. In the enlightened mental state, your mind doesn't do that because you've eliminated these causes and conditions, namely ignorance and craving and anger. So in the enlightened mental state, you're already happy before you ever woke up in the morning. And when you see it's sunny, it's like, sweet, it's sunny outside. This is wonderful. I'll go outside and play, right? And now when you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining, it's like, well, I guess I can't go outside and play, and I'll just stay home or read a book, or I'll go to the mall, or maybe I'll invite my friends over. You didn't base your happiness on the sun. So therefore, when there's no sun, you can maintain your happiness. You can maintain your joy. So the enlightened mental state is a permanent mental state of peace, calm, serenity, contentedness, and joy, because your mind is now unconditioned. There doesn't need to be any condition met for those qualities to exist in the mind. The way you might think about it is if you have the sun and there's clouds in front of the sun. The sun is there, but the clouds are blocking the sun. When you peel away the clouds, the rays of the sun are going to shine through, right? Well, your mind is the same way. The natural state of the human mind is enlightened, but it's got these pollutions that are in the way. And when you eliminate these pollutions and you get them out of the way, those natural qualities can shine through. The only difference in this analogy is that the clouds are going to come back and eventually block the sun. But by the time you get rid of these pollutions out of the mind, they will never come back into the mind ever again, because you've eradicated them and uprooted them and eliminated them out of the mind. Essentially, the mind has been rewired. It no longer functions through this conditioning because you've uprooted it. Your mind is now in this unconditioned mental qualities.
I roughly get what you mean, but I just wanted to add up on my last question. Let's say if you eliminate all the conditioned crave to get happy or to be upset or to be angry, but let's say if you eliminate all the conditioned craves and you reach to that enlightened mental status, right? And then what are you living based on? What are you basing on to live? You're so empty.
I'm sorry?
It's like you're so empty, right? You don't have feelings, you don't have no craves, no nothing.
You don't have any conditioned feelings, that your mind's not going up and down and up and down and up and down. So like, for example, you've probably had hobbies or a certain job or activity that you chased after this thing, and you had a lot of motivation and enthusiasm to go do this particular thing. But eventually that craving burned out and you chose not to do that thing anymore. And your mind might have swung all the way to the other side where you were dull and lethargic and complacent. This is what the unenlightened mind does, is it either chases, or it'll swing to the other side where you feel dull and lethargic and lazy. What the Buddha is teaching you, going to your question, is he's teaching you to come to the middle, where instead of chasing after things and basing your feelings on whether you get it or not, instead you come to the middle where you gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making, with enthusiasm, with ambition, and with motivation. But you do it through wise decisions instead of based in craving. Because with craving, you can only pursue that thing as long as there's a craving in your mind. And that craving is not permanent. So as soon as that craving's gone or it fades away, your mind will swing all the way to the other side. But when you're making your decisions based in wisdom, which is what the Buddha is guiding you to get to, now that is permanent. You can sustain that for your entire life. So for example, the Buddha had the goal of his teachings reaching the entire world. This is a very ambitious goal for 2,500 years ago. He spoke a certain language that was a regional language just in a small portion of the world. There was no way his teachings were going to reach the entire world during his lifetime, because travel wasn't very easy during that time frame. His language that he spoke was only understood by a limited number of people. There was no way it was going to happen during his lifetime. And he understood that. It was going to be many generations later, like right now. Because we have an international language. Travel is easy. We can press a button and we can send information across the world very easily. So you can learn and you can train your mind to pursue your goals and objectives with enthusiasm and with ambition through wise decisions rather than through craving, because craving is not sustainable. But that's what the mind does in the unenlightened state, is it will chase and chase and chase. But you can only keep that up for a certain period of time. And that's why you feel exhausted and you feel tired, because the mind is chasing. And then if you're not doing that, if you're not chasing, you're going to swing to the other side where you feel utterly exhausted and tired. So these two extremes are not going to lead to peace and joy in your life. Your mind's just going to keep going up and down and up and down. But when you come to the middle and you gradually pursue your goals and objectives, and you don't base your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not, you can sustain that for the rest of your life. And that's where the peace and the joy is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. You guys can ask whatever you like.
The question is kind of similar to his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because sometimes we feel like the conditional happiness, like what if I have a better family? What if I have a decent job? What if I can get a perfect boyfriend or husband or something? And we set it as a kind of expectation, also the goal of our life. And that's what we are living and doing for. And sometimes we call like doing this kind of things with the passionate. So what if I get rid of this kind of conditional expectations and maybe just live with the flow? Yeah, somehow I can see his questions that we may fall into the emptiness. What if I don't want what we call a decent job? I don't really care about how much money I got in my bank deposit. I don't really care about my relationship. I just do whatever I want to do. But the thing is that suddenly I cannot fund anything I want to do. Yeah. Like it's easy for me to travel around. It's not that easy for me to travel somewhere far away or somewhere like fancy and expensive. But at least I can live whatever I want to live. But now here's the situation. I don't know what I want to do. Yeah, so somehow I kind of feel like lost the hope for the life.
Yeah. So you're not getting the entire path here, right? We've only studied 2 chapters and very limited amount of information. But what you need to be able to understand on both of these questions is you need to understand the difference between a true goal and a craving, desire, attachment. Right now, if your goals are met and you're happy, and your goals are not met and you're sad and frustrated, that's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. That's your wants and expectations. That if you get what you want, you're happy. And if you don't get what you want, you're angry or sad or frustrated. That's not a goal. A true goal is something that you can gradually work towards, and you can maintain your peace and joy whether you accomplish it or not, right? So if you're 80% of your way towards a goal, you can look at the goal and say, I didn't get to the goal while maintaining your happiness. And you're like, you know what? I could give myself more time and that'll help me to reach this goal. Or I could add more resources to be able to help me accomplish it. Or you know what? I'm fine with the 80%. I don't need to go any further. I'm just completely fine with this, right? But if you have craving, desire, attachment, you can't do that. You can only be happy if you get what you want. That's not a goal. So you need to learn how to come to the middle, which your mind doesn't know how to do because you don't understand the full training that the Buddha teaches you. But if you understand the full training, you can gradually bring your mind to the middle and gradually train it to do the things that I'm describing. Right now, it sounds so foreign to you to be able to work towards a goal and not get happy if you accomplish your goal, and to not get sad if you don't accomplish your goal. You can't imagine doing that. Where what I'm describing to you is 100% possible, but your mind needs the wisdom of how to do it. This is the instruction manual that the Buddha is giving you about how to train this mind and essentially rewire it to get it to the point where you're just always happy. And you can just gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests, and you're not swinging from side to side like this, because that's what the unenlightened mind will do. So there's only so much time in any one particular class for me to be able to help you guys, but that's why I have all these books and I have all these recordings and I teach classes all the time. No matter where you are in the world, you can continue to learn, because if you're interested in this better way of life, of getting to peace and joy permanently, you can accomplish that. It's just that right now you don't have the wisdom of how to do that. And I can't teach someone in 5 minutes how to get to complete peace and joy. It takes multiple classes to be able to gradually learn how to train your mind. But everything I offer is available at no cost, whether it's books, videos, podcasts, audiobooks, even personal guidance. I sit down with students and help them to be able to understand. So if you guys are interested in learning how to train your mind, you guys can get the help that you need. Okay. All right. So no more questions for today. Let me see. You have another question? Yeah, go for it.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
I know many people doing like as vegetarians,
Mm-hmm.
like their daily practice. I've tried once. I felt really difficult. Just eat plant-based food or egg. And I was wondering, does that count as a errand to meat or something? If so, what kind of practice should I do as daily practicing?
Sure. So what the Buddha teaches you is wise decision making. Everything is based in what we call discernment or wise decision making. And one of the things that you can see is wise is a plant-based food supply, because as long as you keep eating meat, which our bodies were never intended to eat meat, you can see this through our teeth that we are not carnivores. We are not beings that eat meat, but we just started eating meat out of necessity. Scientists tell us this, our teeth tell us this. We can see this very clearly, that now when we eat meat, we're not just eating the flesh of the animal, we're also eating drugs, hormones, and toxins, which are causing illness to our body. And if we choose to eat plants, we'll find that our bodies are more healthy and our mind is more healthy because we're not ingesting the drugs, hormones, and toxins. So whether someone chooses to do this or not, it's a choice for them to make, but they will notice improvements in the health of their body and their mind if they choose to do this. The best way to do it is to do it gradually, because your body and your mind is so used to meat that it will hold on to it and it will cling to it. And when you switch to plants, there's going to be changes where probably for the first several months, you probably feel hungry, that, you'll feel like you're not quite full. You'll feel like the taste and the flavor that you used to get through meat is no longer there. And your mind will be displeased with this because it longs and yearns for those flavors that you used to have with meat. So your mind's going to be holding on to the idea of eating meat, and it'll be very difficult to let go. So what you do is you just gradually train your mind in this direction. Or maybe one meal you eat meat, one meal you eat plants, one meal you eat meat, one day you eat meat, one day you eat plants, just gradually, because you're going to need to find new recipes, new suppliers, new restaurants, and things like this. But nowadays, the quality of food with plant-based food is really high, especially here in Thailand. You can eat some wonderful food that is plant-based, and you'll see slowly but surely as you're transitioning, it'll take you probably 6 months or a year for the body and the mind to fully transition, but you'll see that there's going to be more health with your hair, with your eyes, with your skin, with your fingernails, with the stomach itself, with your mind. You're going to see all kinds of improvements, but you're going to need to do this gradually. Don't put pressure on yourself to go like cold turkey and just flip right away, because that's what people usually do, and that's very hard for the mind. So you just do it slowly but surely and gradually do it. This is going to be helpful because you're not causing harm to animals, and therefore because of that you're not going to be causing harm to your own body as well. You're welcome. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Hello. And thank you for today. And my question is about the argument, the wind moves or the flag moves. Yeah, I don't know how to understand the answer is your mind. And is it about the eye contact and the eye consciousness? I mean, obviously, it's the flag that moves. So I don't understand that.
I'm not understanding your question.
Oh,
what are you asking about the flag moving and the
wind? Because there are two monks. They are moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's two people that are arguing, they're not monks, because the Buddha teaches you to practice the teachings, right? And two individuals who are practicing the teachings closely, they wouldn't be arguing. So the Buddha teaches that just because you shave your hair and you wear a certain color of clothing doesn't mean that you're a monk, right? So if there's two people who are arguing about whether it's the flag moving or the wind blowing, they're not actually monks. They might be shaving their hair and wearing certain colors of clothes, but that doesn't mean they're practicing the teachings closely, because the teachings of the Buddha aren't about arguing. It's not about trying to determine whether the flag is moving or the wind is blowing or anything like that. It's the things that I'm teaching you here, that the Buddha is teaching you how to train your mind to get rid of pollution. But when you have a craving to prove that I'm right and you're wrong, then yeah, these two people will argue, right? But that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. So if you've seen that kind of thing where there's two people who are arguing about whether the flag is moving or the wind is moving, that has nothing to do with the teachings of the Buddha, because you wouldn't argue if you're practicing the teachings of the Buddha closely, and it has nothing to do with about a flag or the wind or anything like that. It's about these things that the Buddha is teaching. But did you have another question besides this here? No? Okay. So sometimes you've been exposed to things that aren't necessarily the teachings of the Buddha, even if it's a book that says Buddhism on it, even if you go to a temple and there's people shaving their hair and wearing certain colors of clothing. Oftentimes we think that these things are Buddhist because it says Buddhism right on the cover of the book, or you're in a particular temple and you think that this should be Buddhism. But you need to be able to know for yourself by getting back to the original teachings of the Buddha. And that's why I share his original words with you for free, so you can see for yourself. In fact, the name of this book series, it's called The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings from the Buddha have been hidden for a really long time, not intentionally, but inadvertently, because there's 45 volumes of books that are this thick. It's very expensive for people to print those out. Here in Thailand, that would be 3 months of your salary to be able to have a full copy of the teachings of the Buddha. And most people don't own book collections worth 3 months of their salary. So what we've done is it's been consolidated into 13 books, and then we give it away at no cost so you guys can get access to it. And you don't believe me, you don't believe the books, but then you can investigate it yourself and see the truth of what the Buddha actually taught. But I'm sure you guys have been exposed to different things in your life, maybe thinking that those things were Buddhism. In reality, they're not Buddhism. So thank you for asking the question, but there's nothing for me to reply there because there's nothing about the teachings of the Buddha there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be teaching here as part of our group learning program. This is a foundational program that really helps students to build up a foundation. And at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching in a more traditional method. I'm going to be in chapter 16 of this book. It's titled Dissolving the Ego. Ego Serves No Purpose. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to teach you what the ego is. I'm going to teach you the problems that you encounter because of the ego. And then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate it from the mind so that you don't have to walk around continuing to have difficulties with this. I'm going to be teaching that at 9 a.m. tomorrow and 9 p.m. as well, because they have the Sunday night walking market out here. So you can come here and learn it in the evening too. And then tomorrow at 6:30 in the evening, I'm also going to be doing meditation with students, where I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation different than what we just did today, where this meditation helps you to rewire your mind to be loving and kind and eliminate the anger, the hatred, the ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, and things like this. And then after our meditation, I'm just going to open up to whatever questions students have. It's just kind of like a meditation session at 6:30 tomorrow evening. You'll see all these details and others on our bulletin board over there, and you'll also see it on our website. And you're welcome to come talk to me, and I can help you get plugged in to the resources that you need to be able to help you in this journey. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest to learn, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.